Alrighty, hello, welcome to Ep.4 of the Someone Else Show. I'm not a politician, I'm not an industry insider. I am, in fact, someone else. And now we have pixels, we have resolution. It's no longer a low quality video, which I do apologize for to anyone who watches the first 3 episodes. Apparently, I had not realized that the resolution of the recording was set to a really low quality, but I fixed it, as you can see here. So with that out of the way, now we begin with a similar story to ones from yesterday, in which someone on the right was arrested a long time later. In yesterday's story, it was over a year later. This one is months later, after pissing off more liberals. Now, in what seems to be a response to a particular move by the left, which is painting roads, specifically intersections and crosswalks, mostly in Washington State. I believe in Seattle, they have that stupid rainbow crosswalk, or maybe a bunch of places have that kind of stuff. But for some reason, Washington State, specifically Seattle, just has this thing where they just like to paint liberal stuff onto crosswalks and intersections. And on that rainbow crosswalk, I believe this happened like a couple years ago. Someone did some burnouts or something on that or something. But now someone else has done donuts on another piece of Alphabet People's street painting. Now, doing burnouts and donuts in the middle of an intersection is not something I would condone. Now, this individual did this 3 separate times over the course of a couple months, once in June and then twice in September. But if you are going to do this to liberal painted intersections and crosswalks, or sorry, if you are going to do burnouts on intersections and crosswalks, you might as well do it to those ones in particular. And here is what that looks like.
Seen in this video, accused of trashing the Pride art piece at the intersection near Northeast 1st and 102nd Avenue Northeast, left more than tire tracks behind.
He does have a criminal history for reckless driving.
Major Inman says Ivan Barzul also shattered a sense of safety after nearly missing these pedestrians and destroyed trust.
Using his vehicle for his own agenda to damage something that actually brings the community together, that we're really proud of.
In total, Inman says he caused upwards of $15,000 in damage.
The 3 occurrences caused tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage because the city of Bellevue would then repaint the intersection.
Now, the video does exaggerate the nearly hitting people part. I mean, the people crossing the sidewalk didn't even flinch, like, at all. Like, first off, the car was about a car's length away from even hitting them. And so they didn't even flinch when they were crossing the sidewalk. And let me tell you, I have come several times to being hit by a car much closer than that, even by a person doing a burnout in college. Someone did a burnout at a party, and I was crossing the sidewalk at the other side of the intersection, and they did a burnout, and they came within about a foot of hitting me. So I have been closer to being hit by people doing burnouts, and it was drunk, indoctrinated college students. So, they're exaggerating on the almost hitting people part. Now, of course, again, don't do donuts and burnouts in an intersection. But anyways, we even see a car make it through the intersection while he's doing the donuts. You can barely see it, I think, maybe in one of the clips or one of the things there. But a car does make it through the intersection as he is doing it. Now, the equally dumb part is that somehow this was $15,000 worth of damage. I believe it was. I think it was 15,000. Maybe I'm misremembering. It was 1,500. But I'm pretty $15,000 worth of damage. I don't know how that is, because every time he did this, it means the town went and repainted it, but it means that there is no way the amount of paint required to cover up the actual tire marks left was around $1,500, even if it was done multiple times. And it was done, like I said, once in June, and then I believe it was like it was twice in September, but it was like literally just like 2 or 3 days apart in the ones in September. So there wouldn't have been time to repaint it between donut session number 2 and number 3. So they only had to repaint it twice, as far as I would assume, which would mean $7,500 per repainting. And again, there's no way that the tire marks covered that much paint, which means that they actually went and had the whole thing repainted in its entirety both times, which now unfortunately we don't know if any of that money came from some sort of federal government arts program thing where they allocate federal money for this kind of stuff. But if it did, then here would be another thing for Musk and Vivek and Doge to go after. Now, moving on, this week, AOC got attention for removing her pronouns from her X bio, and then she posted a video a couple days ago also asking for Trump voters to tell her about podcasts that they watch, because as we all know, this was a very big election for podcasts. But I don't know what the play is, what she's doing. Like, either she is getting red-pilled, like maybe, but as far as I'm concerned, the more likely thing here is that she's just trying to position herself to make her seem sort of more moderate, to get herself higher up in the power structure of the Democrat Party. Like, it's a political move. Or it's just, trying to pull some sort of fast one on Republican media. Like, tell me all these Republican podcasts. I won't try and, get them shut down by Media Matters or YouTube, or for spreading disinformation during the election or whatever. Obviously, this podcast wouldn't be subject to that, because this is a new show and we weren't around for that. And also, we don't have that influence. Anyways, but the bigger story for me when it comes to social media this week, for the left, wasn't that. But it's actually Joy Reid. Not because Joy Reid is so important, but because last week, along with other leftists, they deleted their X accounts and making excuses as to why. But we all know why, because they need to have a little bubble where they can have an echo chamber in. But if you are wondering or worrying where you're going to find terrible takes straight from the donkey's mouth, here's the thing. Every time the left has had a freak out regarding X, they try to switch to knockoffs. So, like literally things that both look and function almost identically to X. And they tried this once when Musk first bought Twitter. That didn't work out. They tried to switch to something called Mastodon and a lesser-known one called Hive Social. Both failed miserably, as far as I know. But there was one other one that didn't take off then either, which was something called Blue Sky, which is actually was made included Jack Dorsey, the person who originally made Twitter, that Musk then bought Twitter from. So Jack Dorsey and a few other people made this thing called Blue Sky, and it didn't take off at the time because I believe it was only on iPhone or something. Like, you could only have it on a mobile app, so there was no web browser version of it. So it was like, it was allegedly it was in development since like 2019 as like an internal project at Twitter that then Jack Dorsey took with him and spun off into its own separate thing. And by the way, Jack Dorsey is no longer even with Blue Sky since he left their board earlier this year in June. Now, the reason he would have done that, presumably, is because Blue Sky wasn't doing so well. Again, like I said, they didn't gain traction during that first freak out when everyone on the left was like, "Oh my God, we gotta leave X because Musk bought it and is doing what he's doing with it." But again, it was a bit rushed. There was only a mobile app. I think maybe for only iPhone. I don't even know. I think it was only iPhone. That's what I remember it being. But there was definitely no web browser version. But anyways, now that Trump won re-election, however, the left has again decided to try and jump ship from X. So now if you want to find awful takes from people like Don Lemon and Joy Reid on social media, you can now find them on Blue Sky, because it has advanced since the last time. Now there is, you can view it on web browser. There is an Android app as well. And I did venture over to take a gander at the stupidity, and it was mostly posts about how X is dead, how X is dying, which is obviously not the case, but because these people live in their own little padded bubble where they think they are the center of attention, they think that when they leave X, it's the demise of the entire platform. Now, here are some of the fun posts that we found. Now, along with the whole X is dying thing, there are posts here from Joy Reid, and she's reposting a bunch of others talking about how, they're still going on about how the Democrats ran a perfect campaign. There was nothing more they could do. And then it's not a historic win for Trump. He only won by almost 2% of the popular vote, and all that, and trying to cope with losing the election. But my favorite one has to be this one from Joy Reid in the middle of yesterday, which is this question, which is: name one state the right has taken over and improved. In those categories that she names, whatever. Where is the right wing? Minnesota, California, Massachusetts, or New York? And I don't know, Joey. Let's ask all the people who are leaving from Minnesota, California, Massachusetts, New York, and Illinois, which you didn't even mention, and moving to places like Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. And it's kind of also like there is no right-wing Minnesota or California or the other ones, because that's Republican states don't have cities that are constantly being burned down. Like, that just doesn't. You can't have a right-wing Los Angeles, because that wouldn't happen. So, like, you're asking an impossible question in a way. But again, just ask the people leaving those states for that answer, if you must. And of course, the comments in the for that post and all the other posts obviously offer no real challenge to her view. In fact, like, reporting hate speech on Blue Sky is a big thing. So you're never gonna see any contradictory opinion. They're gonna be safe in their little padded bubble over there. For a long time, probably, and they're gonna keep hearing the echoes in their echo chamber. But anyways, all those states are places that people are leaving. And speaking of places that people should move away from, the country that we mentioned yesterday, the former country known as the UK, because it's been run over now at this point. We've lost it. Yesterday we talked about people on the left saying being arrested, or people being arrested for saying things that the left doesn't like. Now there is a thing on the flip side of that where apparently a trainee teacher who shared over 1,000 videos of child abuse and newborn babies being sexually assaulted was not sentenced to any form of jail time. So you can't disagree with the left on anything, but you can do that as far as they're concerned. And it's just wild how bad the double standard is, except you can't even call it a standard because they just keep moving the goalposts, which no longer makes it a standard, because the whole definition of a standard is to, have it be set there, and they keep moving it, so it can't even be a double standard. But anyways, it seems to me like it's always teachers, like it's always liberal teachers who are doing this kind of thing. And honestly, it should be like part of the vetting. Like, it should be part of the vetting process. If you are just like, it should be part of the. And it probably is for jobs and stuff. I don't know why it isn't for teachers. Apparently, to look at people's social media and see what they're doing. Because, and honestly, maybe it should be a prerequisite that Democrats should not even be allowed to be teachers at this point. Because it's always a liberal teacher doing some sort of crazy pedophilic stuff with children, either they're students or otherwise. I don't know what it is about leftist teachers and pedophilia, which honestly, the joke about Catholic priests and little boys should be changed to leftist teachers and little children. So there you go. But that's how it is now in the UK. They are sinking into the ocean as a society. Now, moving on, last night was UFC 309, and it took place in Madison Square Garden, and President Trump was in attendance along with Elon, RFK Jr., Vivek, Tulsi Gabbard, Speaker Mike Johnson, among others. And there were a couple highlights from the night that weren't the fights themselves. The first one being when fighter Jim Miller, is it really Jim Miller? I feel like I might have gotten there. I think Jim Miller, who won his fight, gave this as part of his victory interview.
It feels amazing. New York, I got one thing to say first. We need justice for Peanut, right? Like, you know, and it's not just a squirrel. It's all the kids that went hungry that night. And all the other things that the money and resources could have been put to. Hopefully that Doge cleans things up down at the state level.
I like how you use the post-victory speech for a political rally.
Justice for Peanut indeed, but yet again another person forgets about Fred the Raccoon. And this was kind of a common thing. And it is just a common thing for UFC. It's a big Republican thing. You know, and when Trump enters a UFC event, the crowd goes nuts. They did last night. They love it. But another moment from last night was actually after the main event, when in which Jon Jones successfully defended his heavyweight title against Stipe Miocic. Jones went, as many fighters did actually after their fights. They all pretty much went to actually, because Trump was sitting ringside, of course, with Elon, and then I think in the row behind him was Vivek, Tulsi, a couple of his sons, Speaker Mike Johnson, and a few other people that were there with him, essentially. But Trump was sitting like pure ringside, like first row ringside. So a lot of the fighters, you know, they would go over and talk to him, and Jon Jones actually went over there, talked to him, and gave him his belt, and here is what that looked like.
It is all about Jon Jones sharing the belt there with the President-elect Donald Trump. Americans, largely historically, have realized the most success in the UFC. And the greatest American fighter of all time is that man, Jon Bones Jones, now successful in the first defense.
So, you know, great stuff. You can actually hear him say, kind of, it's just picked up in the audio. It wasn't like maybe intended to be picked up, but you can hear Jon Jones saying, you know, Trump's president, you know, he made the fight more of a thing. He was a little bit more nervous, you know, going into, because it was such a big thing that Trump was there. Like they love him over there at the UFC. And it's great stuff. You know, it was a festive atmosphere because everyone was clapping. I think there's another clip after all the fights where they started playing YMCA, and, you know, Trump does the dance and everyone cheers. Like, they love it. They love it. You know, great. And it was all fun, you know, and good times. But of course, because it was at Madison Square Garden, the left on social media went immediately back to the whole, you know, Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden thing, and it's like, shut up. Like, it's a UFC event, everyone's cheering, laughing, dancing. That doesn't even happen at any political rally, really. So it's like, you just stop trying to, you know, like, like you all breathe. Are you also a Nazi? Because Nazis breathed. You blink. Nazis, pretty sure, were big blinkers. They had a whole thing with the eyes, you know. So are you a Nazi? But anyways, finally, though, we have more important news, actually, because it actually is about politics. There is some breaking news rumors about another Trump administration appointment. It is rumored that Stanford physician Professor Jay I'm going to butcher this name, Bhattacharya, is a leading candidate for heading up the NIH. And he was, a stark critic of the NIH during COVID, and would be another pick that Trump would make that puts another person who is actually much like Trump himself, where they have a score to settle with the Democrat bureaucracy in Washington, that he is set to take charge of. So he's been appointing people. Every person he's appointed basically has beef with the agency that they're being appointed to, because Trump has beef with the entire bureaucracy, all of it. So under him, for each each agency of the bureaucracy, this seems to be a thing with him where he's appointing someone who has beef with that specific agency, to kind of go in there and clean shop. But that's the big political news that we're going to end on. Is we have another at least rumor of at least a leading candidate for another position in the Trump administration. And that will do it for this episode. Remember, this is a weekday type show, but it's done on the weekends. So we will be back here on Saturday next weekend, and hopefully, we'll see you there.